Morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock. I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning for this pre-electing convention review. I'm Courtney Reed. I am the Director of Operations for the Diocese, and it's my privilege to welcome you here this morning. Please know that you aren't able to see each other, and you will generally only see the panelist who is speaking. So we are using the same format that we will be using during our electing convention, the Zoom webinar. And there will be a chance later this morning, we'll be talking more about the ways that even in the midst of not seeing each other, not being able to speak together, that you can connect and sort of be with each other virtually. As we begin this morning, I invite you to pray with me. Gracious God, who sets the sea in their bounds and gives life to all your creatures, who continually renews the face of the earth and is faithful to your covenant from generation to generation, lift up and guide the people of this diocese as we seek the next bishop to lead us. Renew our strength in the baptismal ministries to which you call us. Watch over and inspire the work of all who are entrusted with this task. And by the power of your Spirit, draw your people always toward the vision of your holy reign. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen. This morning, you will hear a number of presentations. You'll watch a video together. You'll have a chance to ask questions and get some answers. And we'll have a chance to practice the two ways that we will be voting during the election. And we're going to start our time together this morning with a video that talks about Zoom and also talks about the ways we will be voting.
Hello, and welcome to this instructional video. My name is Andrew Rutledge, and I am one of the assistant tellers for this very special electing convention. If you attended last month's diocesan convention, you heard me explain the various ways to fully participate in an online convention, the same as if you were at an in-person convention. Things like how to engage in worship and fellowship, how and where to ask a question if pertaining to official convention business, and most importantly, how to vote. Well, this video is intended to do the same thing, but specifically is for this electing convention. While much of the information is the same, there are some key differences we want to highlight. Because the sole purpose of this special convention is to elect our next bishop, I'm going to begin by explaining how all this is going to work, specifically how you will be able to confidently vote using an online platform. Similar to last month's convention, there are still two ways to vote: by acclamation and by ballot. As a reminder, voting by acclamation, for example, would be if the bishop is wanting the opinion of the convention and assumes there won't be much debate, like ratifying procedures or approving our rules of order. Voting by ballot, on the other hand, the type of ballot needed to elect our next bishop, requires a separate and more secure process. Here's the good news. Because you did such a great job at our last convention, we are using the same voting process for this electing convention that we used last month. If you didn't participate in last month's convention and you have no idea what I'm talking about, no need to worry. I'm happy to explain the process again. Remember, there are two types of voting, by acclamation and by ballot, and we will be using two different voting platforms for these two types of voting. The first platform to describe is Zoom polling, and this is the platform we will use to vote by acclamation. Whenever there comes a point during convention to have a vote by acclamation, specifically to ratify our procedures and approve our rule of orders, an announcement will be made saying, "We are about to vote by acclamation." And in that moment, you will see a Zoom poll pop up on your screen. Simply read the question, select your answer, and then click Submit. This process is fairly straightforward. The poll will have a simple question, generally yes or no. You simply click the answer and then press Submit. These results will be shared quickly after answering. Now, my only word of warning is that it is a pop-up window, and if you're like me, when I normally see pop-up windows in my everyday life, I typically close them. Please do not close this window when it pops up. Simply select your answer and then the pop-up will go away. Now let's talk about V-polling, or the platform that we will be using to vote by ballot. This is a completely separate process and requires a totally different log on a separate website. It will be easiest to use a different device like a phone or tablet to access vPoll. However, you can also open another window in your browser just like this. Make sure you don't close the webinar, just minimize it while you vote. To access this secure logon, you should have received an email with all the necessary logon information. First, click the link for vPolling, then the unique access code for this convention. Follow the prompts to fill in your name, ID number, and select the polling session. Click Submit and you are now logged in. Once on the page, you should see a page that says something similar to "Question will be broadcast shortly." This is because the poll is not yet open for voting. Just like what we did with Zoom polling, we will make an announcement by saying, "We are about to vote by ballot." And in that moment, the ballot will be open. At that time, you are to either find your second browser window on your computer or have a second device logged into vPoll and ready to go, and you will then see an open and active ballot ready for voting. If you don't see an active ballot ready for voting displayed on vPoll, no need to worry. Just refresh your screen and an open ballot should be displayed. Again, simply read the question or ballot, make your selection, and then click Submit. Since this type of voting is slightly more complicated and requires going out of Zoom or using a second device, more time will be given to ensure your vote is cast properly and counted. Because more time is used for vPoll, unlike Zoom polling, the results will not be immediate. Now that you know how to vote, let's talk about how you can communicate with diocesan staff if it pertains to official convention business. All questions and statements pertaining to the business of this electing convention should go through the Q&A. If you would like to speak to a member of the diocesan staff, or having issues that need to be addressed, or have questions about anything to do with the process of convention, please use the Q&A function. For all non-business communication, like requesting prayers, participating in virtual worship, or engaging in meaningful fellowship, please feel free to use the chat. Social engagement and having connecting dialogue is encouraged throughout this electing convention. But because of the seriousness of this election, the chat function will temporarily be disabled and closed throughout different portions of the electing process. Anytime the chat will be disabled, the chair will make an announcement beforehand. When having a convention online, really anytime you incorporate digital technology, there is always the potential for experiencing technical difficulties. For this reason, just like we did last month, there is plenty of help available. We have a team of people standing by, just waiting to hear from you when you encounter problems. If you are having any issues at all, don't hesitate to call our hotline. The numbers for support will be posted at the electing convention and probably have been emailed to you already. Having a convention online is strange and certainly not ideal, But as most of you know from last month's convention, God is still at the center of what we are doing and is definitely present. And with the help of all of you, the Holy Spirit will surely show up as we elect our next bishop.
Andrew, thank you. And it's great to see the Christmas tree in your living room. Let's take a moment to then practice these Zoom webinar features that Andrew just described. I also want to let everyone know that we do have interpreters in the room this morning. And if you need Spanish language interpretation, you just need to click on the little globe in the bottom right hand of your screen and then choose Spanish. So thanks to our interpreters who have joined us this morning. Let's first practice the Q&A feature on the Zoom webinar platform. And you will see either at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen a ribbon which says Chat, Q&A, or Raise Hand. Click on Q&A, and for now you can put any question you'd like in there. But this will be the mechanism by which you will ask a question about convention business. So don't use the chat, but let's use the Q&A right now. So click on Q&A and make sure you put some questions in. Favorite Christmas cookie? How are you? I like a good Toll House. Excellent. I see questions coming in. I'll give everyone a minute to. And there will be time before the end of today's session to actually type your real questions into this that our Q&A watchers will be able to answer or will answer out loud for the whole group. But again, this is for convention business. We have staff and volunteers who are watching this and will either answer your question or direct you to the right place to get your question answered. Wonderful. All right. The next thing, and a rare use of this feature, unlike convention, annual convention, where we used it more, is the raise hand feature. Honestly, the only sort of reason you would need to use the raise hand feature during the electing convention is if you want to be the person first in line to second a motion. We'll be having 2 resolutions to ratify our procedures and adopt the rules. And so you would raise your hand to be recognized by the president of convention, our bishop. Otherwise, you really want to use the Q&A so you get directed to the right place. And if it's a matter that needs to be brought to the floor, you would then be invited to raise your hand. But everyone take a moment and raise your hand. Just click on the raise hand feature, and then I would invite you to lower your hand in about 30 seconds. I see 36 hands raised. Excellent. So again, for those of you for whom making a second is real, or making the motion to adjourn at the end of the day, the raise hand feature is for you. Lastly, let's practice in the chat. And the chat, as Andrew said in his video, is the place where you can share prayers, you can share greetings, perhaps something funny you saw in the news or on the Zoom, but is a place where, to the best of our ability, we can build community and share with one another. It is important to note that the chat will be disabled at times during the electing convention, primarily during times of balloting. The chat is not the place to caucus or sort out for whom you are going to vote. It will be great, though, if you have groups of people with whom you want to discuss your support of candidates or pray together. To figure that out, you're going to do that prior to the convention. You might use a text group. You might use another social media platform like Slack or Microsoft Teams. You might set up a whole separate Zoom meeting as long as you don't get off the Zoom webinar. You might have an email group, but the chat is not for that purpose, but for a way of building community together. So lots of messages in the chat. Scott Elliott asked if people can be on 2 Zooms at once. As long as you're only logged in as yourself to one of them, you can be on 2 Zooms, but not on, I wouldn't recommend it on the same screen. I've done that before. Excellent. So those are our Zoom webinar features. If we could go to the next slide with pre-convention support. Again, as the video mentioned, we do have support in place before the convention as well as during the convention. On Wednesday, you should receive a couple of emails. Please don't delete them. You will get one from Scott Casey, which will be your VPOL credentials. You'll get an email from the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago with 5 things you need to know about electing convention. And it will include all sorts of useful information, as well as much of the information from this screen and other information I'll share today. You'll also get an email from Karen Gutierrez inviting you to register for the Zoom webinar, the same sort of email you got to register for this one. And that is the email by which you'll get the link for the electing convention. Please check out, look for those. And on Thursday morning, if you don't have those emails, please give Karen Gutierrez a call at the number below on the screen, or email her at kgutierrez@episcopalchicago.org. If you are struggling with your technology, or if you have delegates who are struggling with technology, not sure how to use it, having a hard time logging on, please also have them, or perhaps the 2 of you together, get on a conference call with Karen so you can get some support and we can help you out. Next slide, please. During the convention itself, support will be available beginning at 7:30 a.m. Our convention will convene at 9:30, so 2 hours before, you will be able to log on to the webinar, and you'll also be able to get support that will be displayed on the screen as well as listed on the emails that you'll receive. Technology support, if you can't find your Zoom link, if you're having a hard time logging on, if you're wondering how on earth do I use Zoom, and if you're still confused about how to use the VPOL, the electronic voting platform by which we'll be electing the bishop. So please use that support. And to that end, just like for annual convention, I would recommend that you log on early. At least say an hour, but I would say even earlier, at that 7:30, 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. You don't need to sit at your screen for 2 hours waiting for it to start. That's kind of boring, but you can get logged on and then go about your morning business, stay logged on, and then come back to your screen at 9:30. That will let you make sure that you're logged on, you've got the information you need, you've got the VPOL information, and that you're ready to go when the convention convenes at 9:30. All of the phone numbers and an email address for this support will be in the email you receive tomorrow, but will also be posted on the PowerPoint when we open up the convention meeting on Saturday morning. Next slide, please. Those of you who are at annual convention remembered that we passed rules of order for a virtual convention just a few weeks ago. And I want to review those because these rules will apply during the convention. So next slide. To participate in the convention, members need access to the internet. You can use a laptop, a tablet, a smartphone, or a desktop computer, anything that allows you to connect to the internet platform, to the Zoom webinar. You also need to have a unique email address to get information about the convention. If you share an email address with a spouse or family member and you're both delegates, you're going to get you want another email, and you'll want to sign up for that in the next day and send that information to Karen Gutierrez. Otherwise, you won't be able to vote. You each need a separate, only one of you would be able to vote. You need a separate email address to vote. If you know of people who don't have access to a device or the internet, folks can give us a call, contact us really today, no later than tomorrow, and we will try to assist to the fullest extent possible. Next slide, please. No later than 3 days before convention, so on Wednesday, you'll get the information with the time of the meeting, the phone number, and to dial in. You can dial in to listen as long as you still have access on your phone, as long as you still have access to a computer to log into the internet. And access information will also be emailed for the electronic voting platform. Next slide, please. But importantly, remember that you can't participate solely by telephone. You must be connected to the electronic platform via the internet on your device. When you log in, there we go. We'll begin service at least 2 hours before. Technology support will be available. However, members are responsible for their own audio and internet connection. And there is no action that will be invalidated on the grounds that an individual member loss of connection or loss of the internet prevented participation. We do want to assist you though, so if you do lose connection, give us a call. We have our own IT consultants on standby to help out if someone is really struggling with their technology. When you log on to the Zoom webinar, this is really important. When you look at the way your name, when you log on, you'll enter your name. You want to make sure you use the name that you registered with. At the annual convention, there were a couple people that I never could figure out who they were because they used a different name. So whatever your screen name is, mine is Courtney Reed, that should be the name that I register with on the for the convention, so that we can make sure that you're present and get our quorum. Since we're not able to celebrate the Eucharist because we're virtual, morning prayer will be celebrated, and then quorum will be established by both completion of the registration form and the survey form that we'll be completing between ballots. And we'll have a chance to practice that survey form today. Next slide. These are the ways that we talked about that we'll be using the Zoom features, using Q&A to post a question, to using chat for non-business postings, and that we'll be voting using a confidential electronic voting platform. So that was an overview of the rules that we already passed and that will be in effect for this convention. In addition, when a diocese elects a bishop, both procedures for how that whole search, nomination, and election process is going to take place have to be adopted, and we will be adopting those, ratifying those, because they've already happened at the convention, and we will be approving rules of order for our election, because there's a few things that will be a little different, and this will be one of our first orders of business when we gather on Saturday. Next slide, please. Speeches and floor debates are not allowed except as permitted at the discretion of the president of convention, the bishop. So unlike annual convention where we do have debates where people are presenting resolutions, in an electing convention, speeches and floor debates are not allowed. It's important to know too that part of that is because the decision, one, we want it to be a spirit-filled and spirit-guided process. This is not a debate like the presidential election. And we have had many opportunities to hear our candidates, to speak to each other about the candidates prior to this convention. Secondly, the members of convention shall not have conversation with anyone from the press while the electing convention is in session. The president of convention and the president of the standing committee will be the official spokespersons. This one is really important, and I invite everyone to review it and to agree to adhere to it. During the convention, no participant shall communicate in any way, by phone, email, text, social media, etc., to anyone other than members of convention about the business of the electing convention. We are not going to all be together sitting shoulder to shoulder in the cathedral where we can easily talk to one another. We're going to be operating virtually. And so it is perfectly appropriate to talk with other members of the convention, to ask for opinions, to share, to pray together, using those devices. However, please do not take that outside of members of convention. We are doing all that we can to make sure that our candidates know the status of how many votes they have, where they fall in the order of votes, and we don't want information getting out before we are ready to share it. So please keep those conversations within the confines of the electing convention members. Also, there will be no guests or alternate delegates or media on the electronic platform or the voting platform, except those people who are authorized by the president. This is how we will vote. Remember at our annual convention, if you were there, we vote by majority or even a plurality when we get to second ballots. And generally we don't vote by orders. However, in the case of an electing convention, clergy and lay delegates will vote separately by orders, and our electronic voting platform is able to easily do that for us. So when you register and you get your login for the electronic voting platform, it already knows what order you are in. When 2/3 of the canonically resident clergy who are eligible to vote are present, and 2/3 of all the congregations entitled to vote are represented by delegates who are present, then a concurrent majority in each order will determine a choice. So if we hit that 2/3 quorum in both the clergy and the lay order, then we can elect a bishop by majority vote. It has to be 2/3 in both orders and majority in both orders. If 2/3 of either group, either congregations represented by delegates or 2/3 of canonically resident clergy, are not present, then to elect a bishop, we need to have 2/3 of the votes of each order are necessary to determine a choice. In either way, a quorum must be present for each ballot. If we don't hit that 2/3 quorum, our regular quorum that we use for annual convention will apply. However, it's a bigger threshold to elect a bishop. We want to make sure that we have the widest sort of agreement possible as we move towards our election. We are going to take a moment to practice polling, because the way that we will both ratify the procedures and adopt the rules is by using Zoom poll. So I'm going to turn things over to Jonathan Thomas, who's our head teller, and Andrew Rutledge, one of our assistant tellers, to have our practice.
Good morning. I'm Jonathan. I'm the lead teller for convention, and we are going to practice Zoom polling. So if you remember Andrew's video, this is for very simple things like an acclamation vote to break for lunch. So Zoom polling will just pop up in the middle of your screen, usually a yes or no question. You choose your answer and hit submit. Do you have your Christmas tree up yet? You should see that now.
Yeah, and just like that, with Zoom polling is so easy. You don't have to go out of Zoom or go somewhere else. You just literally are watching your screen, something pops up, the question, and then you just have to answer it and click submit. As for this question, I think everyone can see that my Christmas tree is already up. And yes, before anyone says it in the chat, I know it's Advent, but I think we all need, well, at least I need a little bit of extra cheer this year.
Mine's up too, Andrew. You're not alone.
Oh, thank you. I thought I was put myself out there on a ledge and I was like, I'm out here all alone. No, I'm not. Thank you.
We'll quickly find out if we're in the minority, though.
We were in the minority last night.
Oh, still are, but just by a little.
A little bit better.
Just like we would with a voice acclamation vote, we'll know the results almost immediately. They'll pop up in the middle of the screen just like this. I think we're going to try one more. What's your favorite season?
And again, everyone should be seeing a pop-up screen right now that's on their screen that says, what is your favorite season? These are very important questions. I'm on the edge of my seat. What does this gathered body think of this is their favorite season?
I'm using this to determine whether this is a prayerful group full of the spirit of discernment. And I am heartened to know that it is. Fall is indeed the correct answer, and it makes me hopeful for our election on Saturday.
PTL.
Great, thank you. Fall is mine, and my tree is up too. I looked and enjoyed it this morning. Thanks, Andrew and Jonathan. And in a couple of minutes, we'll come back and we're going to practice with our V polling. I want to take a minute and talk briefly about the agenda for Saturday. As I mentioned a little while ago, the Zoom webinar will open at 7:30 a.m. and that is the time to start checking in. 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. is your check-in to the Zoom webinar. What's really important about that time, not only is it a time for you to make sure everything is working in your system, but it is the time by which those of us who are counting the quorum start checking off a quorum from the registration list. This is also the time that if there's a delegate substitution that you weren't able to get in on Friday, that there's essentially a solutions table where you can make a phone call and get the support you need. So there's lots going on in those 2 hours. So please check in early. We will convene with morning prayer at 9:30, and it promises to be a gorgeous service. I saw the bulletin yesterday. That bulletin will be made available to you as well. It will include a live address by the bishop and is a pre-recorded service that has music from all across the diocese. It's just stunning. Around 9:50 will be our call to order. We'll get organized for business. There'll be things happening that are very similar to our annual convention, work we must do for any convention. We will accept the slate of candidates. The search and nomination committee, who's done the hard and heavy lifting of discerning and praying and bringing forth a slate of candidates, will present them to the convention. And we will, in fact, vote to accept those candidates. It's not a ballot, but we'll be using the V polling, not Zoom, V polling, our electronic voting platform. And every candidate must have at least one vote to be brought to the convention for the first ballot. And we'll begin balloting probably around 10:35 or so. It's a packed agenda in that first morning slot. And then as we begin balloting, there will be some more spacious time for you as members of the convention to pray, to discern, to connect with others in other ways, other members of convention, as we move forward in the process. There'll be a lot of behind the scenes work happening to notify the representatives of candidates after each results are confirmed. There'll be time as well for you just to listen to the music that will be playing, to look at the screen that will be showing, and a chance again for prayerful reflection to give the Spirit a chance to move among us in this virtual world as we discern our next bishop. If needed, there will be a 30-minute lunch break beginning around 12:30. But do know that because of the time between ballots, you will also have time to run and get a cup of coffee, to grab a snack, to take a bio break. It is not as if you will miss anything during some of those times. You want to make sure, though, that you're back at your screen when the next ballot is announced. We have made provision in the event that we reach 5:30 p.m. and the convention appears to be deadlocked, that the president of convention has the opportunity to adjourn the convention to a future date to finish the election. We hope and pray that we will not be there, but we wanted to make sure that we were ready in case that happens. All right, let's practice some vPoll. If you need help logging on or need help with voting, these numbers are on your screen. The first number can provide support in English and Spanish. That's Karen. And the second number, that's me, is English only. So I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew and Jonathan.
Okay, we're now going to practice our vPoll. That was the separate login that you got. So you need to go to wherever you've logged into vPoll, whether it's a separate device or just another screen on your computer.
Yes, this is not Zoom polling where something just automatically pops up on your screen without doing anything. This is the time where you go to that separate device, or specifically that email that was sent to you by Scott Casey, and follow all of those log on instructions to go to the separate website for vPoll to then access our practice ballot. This is the process you will be going through to cast your ballot on the day of the election.
Yeah, so this is really important. That's why when you get that email on Saturday, you can log in early. There's no problem with just leaving this screen up, logging in, making sure that you have no problems, and then waiting for the first ballot. Okay, I think we are shortly going to be voting on our favorite Christmas carol. Here it is. It should be up on your screen. If it's not, you can hit the refresh button.
And if you're like me, I had been logged in this whole time. I went to it, and then for whatever reason, I needed to actually just log out and click all of the information in again that was in the email, and now I can see it. So if refreshing the screen does not work, worst case scenario, you just exit out, log in completely again, and then it will be there.
You'll have plenty of time for each vote on Saturday. We're going to hold each ballot open for 5 minutes. So if you get there and you have logged out and you need to log back in, do not panic. You've got time.
Ample time.
Yes. That may seem like a long time, but we're making sure that all delegates who want to vote have the opportunity. So they can call that line, get the help they need. You should just pick your answer, hit submit, and you'll get a screen that says answer is successfully saved.
My favorite warm and fuzzy screen. It did it. It got my vote. And now I was a little upset with the results in yesterday's practice for everyone's favorite Christmas carol. So let's see if we can't this gathered body can't redeem itself by choosing the correct favorite Christmas carol.
We're at 55 votes, but there are 81 people on our Zoom webinar. So I think there are still a few left to vote. Let's give everyone a chance to make the call if they need to get some support.
And Jonathan, how on Saturday during the electing convention, during our V-poll ballots, how much time are we going to be giving for people to successfully complete their ballot?
5 minutes is how long we're planning to leave one open. If it seems like we're missing a lot of votes, we will extend it. So again, don't panic. It's important to us that every eligible person gets the chance to vote. So we're gonna make sure that we have the vast majority of eligible voters voting before we close the ballot.
Great.
I do wanna remind people that there will be a significant amount of time between your voting and when the results come out, probably about half an hour. That gives us time not only to tally votes in the back, prepare a slide, but also for each bishop candidate to be contacted so that they know what the results are and can make a decision about moving forward, and we can prepare the next ballot for us. So there'll be worship and other things going on, I believe. Some music that people have submitted from their own congregations during that time. Also, you're welcome to go and do whatever you need to do during that half an hour. It will be about half an hour in between each ballot. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and close this ballot. We've had 59 people vote so far. And our leader by a pretty good margin, over 50%, is Silent Night. Actually won a majority of the votes.
I love this gathered body much more than yesterday.
All right, we are also going to practice our quorum vote. Before each ballot, we need to take a quorum to make sure that we've met the two-thirds threshold. So you'll now get something up on your screen that asks you, what's your role at convention? Either lay delegate or canonically resident clergy. Choose one, the one that's appropriate, please. Hit next. And then you'll get a second screen. It has all of our parishes listed, first by location, and then first alphabetically by location, and then by church name. So like I would scroll down till I found Peoria, and then St. Paul's, click on it, and then scroll all the way to the bottom and hit next. If you're, let's say, a retired clergy person, no longer living in the diocese, but still canonically resident, you can choose the NA option at the top.
And again, this is not in Zoom. This is all the way back in vPoll in that second device or whatever second browser you're in. And it should have just automatically updated with asking you, what is your role at convention? So if you're kind of wondering like, well, where's my pop-up screen? You need to go back to vPoll, to that website that you have logged in as, and select the answers appropriately.
You'll get a screen that says, thank you for completing the survey. I do want to tell people on Saturday, the way this will work is the bishop will give us the results of a ballot. And if we're going to need another ballot, he will say, now please go to vPoll and complete the quorum vote. If you would do that immediately, please do not walk off. We need that quorum to know how many votes we're going to need on the next ballot. So everyone needs to do that. This is actually a very important part. Again, you won't even see the results of this. When we come back, the Secretary of Convention will tell us whether or not we have a quorum, and it will just be announced to us. Okay, I think most people have been able to figure out that process. Most of our votes are in for it, so I believe we can move on from the quorum vote.
Great job, everyone.
Excellent. I just want to acknowledge to all of you out there that I recognize that the voting part can be stressful. I had a couple of phone calls and I get like, oh my gosh, is it going to work? We want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to vote. If you've had problems today, please reach out to Karen and we will make sure to get you the help that that you might need prior to convention, maybe some extra work logging in or figuring out where it was getting stuck. So I recognize that it can be anxiety producing. We've got that time. We've got that 5 minutes of ballots. Just breathe, pray, and vote. And if you're stuck, call the helpline. We want everyone to be able to vote. So thanks to Andrew and Jonathan who help maintain that sense of calm as we go through this, and we'll be fine. We will do this. We now have a chance for some questions and answers about the election convention. And so this is a chance to use that Q&A, and I'll happily answer any of the questions that you might have for which we have answers. And it could be that there aren't any. There's been a great team of staff and volunteers working this morning and helping out. I want to give thanks to everyone who was up early this morning to get logged on and to participate, and to all the staff and volunteers, our communications consultants at Canticle, who have worked tirelessly, all of these folks, to make sure that this virtual electing convention goes off without a hitch. And we know that working together we'll be able to do this. And we give thanks for all of you who will be voting and discerning and praying as we await the guidance of the Spirit in helping us to choose our next bishop. Someone just asked a question about the quorum counting vote. So this quorum survey, the one we just answered on vPoll, will happen before each ballot as we reach the second ballot. The first ballot will have done all that checking in when people log on to the webinar. When the bishop will announce that vPoll is open for the quorum survey, and so you will answer those questions. You will choose if you're a lay delegate or canonically resident clergy, and then you'll choose the congregation that you are representing. That quorum count is really important because it is the quorum count before each ballot that will discern how many votes are needed for the election of the bishop. So you'll answer those questions. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom to the end of the names of congregations, which are listed alphabetically by city, and then click submit. Once you've clicked submit, you're good to go. We will not publish those results on the screen. You will hear them reported when Elsie Saldana, our secretary, reports the results of the quorum count. Someone asked about how to go back and forth from Zoom to vPoll. So the easiest way to go back and forth from Zoom to vPoll is to use a different device. If you have one available. So if you're using a desktop computer or a laptop for the Zoom webinar, then use your phone to log into vPoll. If you're not able to do that, you can use your desktop, and there's a place in the top right-hand corner of the Zoom webinar where you can minimize your screen. And so you can leave full screen or shrink your screen so that you can open another tab, log on to vPoll, and then click back over to the Zoom. And that way you're not logging out of the Zoom webinar. How soon after the quorum vote will the candidate vote take place? So we will do the quorum survey. The first one will be before the second ballot, and then there will be about 10 minutes for us to count the quorum, and also importantly for the members of convention to have a chance to discern their second vote. So about 10 minutes from quorum survey to the opening of the second ballot. So question, how do I do that? I'm not quite sure what that is. Jean, if you would like to type. VPOL asks for an access code. Where is this located? You will get all of your information for VPOL in the email that you'll receive before convention. The access code, one of them, it'll, at the VPOL screen, like today, it was CONV practice, and there will be a different one for the electing convention. If you had a hard time logging on to VPOL, please reach out to Karen Gutierrez in the bishop's staff. We can display that slide before we wrap up today so that you can call her and get some assistance. Any other questions this morning? Someone just asked if there'll be a Zoom link and a VPOL access code for Saturday. Yes, and you will receive that information in an email tomorrow, Wednesday. All right. Everyone, thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. Know that we on the bishop staff are still available to support you as you get ready for convention. If your question wasn't answered today or you're struggling to log on or you didn't get an email, please reach out to us. We want Saturday to be as smooth as possible, and we are here to help make this happen. We will miss seeing you in person, but know that we will be doing good work together. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.